Welcome to Overanalyzing Vlogs, where I think too much about something. Or do I? I've been reading Terry Eagleton's book, Reason, Faith and Revolution. It arrived at about 10 o'clock yesterday, and by 8:30 I'd finished it. And it has some very interesting things to say about Christianity. I usually try and keep my religious views semi-ambiguous on the show, but I couldn't really do this video without being clear with you guys. I am an atheist. I don't believe in God. It's something I've read a lot about and written a lot about, engaged a lot with. Philosophy of religion is very, very much my jam. I even studied some theology for a little while at university. I came out of that not a believer. Eagleton is writing in response to so-called new atheism, the Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris style of quite triumphalist, sometimes politically reactionary atheist works that can sometimes be a little condescending and sometimes some worse words as well. And I know that Dawkins in particular is very big on the internet, so I thought it might be interesting to share some of what Eagleton has to say. Eagleton is himself an atheist, but he's also a Marxist, and that's where things get interesting. Eagleton thinks that even if it's not true, there is something interesting in Christianity, and that we shouldn't just throw it all out as myth and not actually look at it a la Hitchens or Dawkins, because in Christianity there's this interesting idea that the ultimate symbol of humanity, the most important thing we need to know about humans and their relation to the rest of the world, is encapsulated or symbolized in the mutilated body of a political dissident. Crucifixion was reserved for political criminals. So the most human, the best human in Christianity was crucified. So in Christianity, this bloke Jesus wanted to transform society into something better based on love and justice. And he thought that it was going to be difficult to do that. He said that he came to set brother against brother, and he thought that it would involve giving up a lot of the pleasures that come from the way the world is now. And he said that in order to do that, he would have to reach out to the people that the Bible calls sinners, the oppressed and the poor. Eagleton particularly focuses on the downtrodden, the people that society says are worthless or on the fringes, and in particular enemies, and include them right in the heart of that transformation mission. And for saying all of that, he is viciously executed by the very system he sought to change, by the very people whose lives he thought he wanted to make better. Now, forget all the supernatural stuff. Forget Son of God, rising from the dead miracles. Just put that all out of your mind. Just politically, that's quite a powerful story. This radically inclusive revolutionary says that society needs to be fixed and tells the oppressed that they will be instrumental in remaking it based on love, and for his pains he is executed, kind of proving his point that society isn't in such good shape. I think that if that was a play or a novel, and if it had only ever been intended as that and everybody knew that, then it would be quite a moving and significant work. Eagleton paints Jesus as a quasi-Marxist revolutionary, and in doing that, he shows that you can get something out of that story even if you're an atheist. Now, he reads a very Marxist political moral into it. You and I might read a less focused political moral or a different one into it if we're not Marxists ourselves. On the other hand, Jesus says a lot of stuff in the Gospels, and some of it isn't as nice as all of that, and in particular I think that Eagleton glosses over Jesus talking about hell a little bit too quickly, but it is an interesting idea to take from that, right? Eagleton's very basic summary of the Jesus story is that society sucks. We need to remake it based on love, and that needn't be an erotic or an interpersonal love, but more of a default respect for everybody and a desire for everybody to receive justice, even those who wrong us, and that doing that is going to involve sacrifice, it's going to involve people not being selfish, and it needs to be an intersectional movement. It needs to include all the people of the world who have been oppressed. Now, admittedly, that's vague on the details as to how to accomplish that specifically, but that's not a terrible political vision, I don't think. Christians who watch the show might well say, well, it's very generous of you to say that, Ollie, but at the same time you can't overlook the spiritual dimension of this. Yes, there's a secular political moral you can take from the Jesus story, but at the same time, it was real, he is the Son of God, this stuff really happened, and the only way to accomplish this is by God reaching into your life and personally transforming you. And, fair enough, that's where you'd lose Eagleton, and that's where you'd lose me as well. I was surprised by just how much I got on board with Eagleton's reading of this, with the idea that you can get something very moving out of the Jesus story as an atheist. Perhaps this is just a function of my own political awakening. Since the recent UK general election, I have become more politically aware, and maybe I'm just in a particularly politically sensitive mood at the moment. I'd be really interested to see what other YouTube atheists have to say about this. Messianic Manic, if you're watching, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this, and maybe some of the big dogs as well, like Jacqueline Glenn and Amazing Atheist and Thunderfoot, people like that. So if you guys want to send this video to them and ask whether they agree with Eagleton's reading of this, then feel free. I might send it to one or two myself. As far as the Jesus story being readable as a leftist political secular vision, well, maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Or am I?